you, just this month, we celebrated 4 years that you've been working as our Youth Spirit Director, first our Youth Spirit Coordinator, now our Youth Spirit Director. So maybe could you tell us a little bit about what originally brought you and your family to WellSprings?
Sure. My story isn't terribly different from a lot of fellow Wellspringers. Jimmy and I are both, I guess you could say, former Catholics, and we had both sort of fallen away from our religion in our young adult lives. So by the time we were together, both of us were non-practicing, although my father and his family were, still pretty serious practicing Catholics. So we, even to his mother's great chagrin, got married by the mayor in Haddonfield because we really didn't want to do the church and have the obligations that went with that. And then we had kids, and we were going along, and somewhere along when they began to get into like elementary school, and we'd be like, oh, you're going to go play with your friends? And they'd be like, oh, no, Wednesday is, they have, religious school, or they have not like Sunday school was sometimes on Wednesdays around here.
Right.
Like,
or people have Hebrew school, I think, on Saturdays or things like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. And it got us to thinking a little bit about, were we being negligent almost? Like, we didn't feel that there was personally something missing, but maybe were we being negligent in not giving our kids like a scaffolding or something to think about in terms of spirituality and what is out there? So Jimmy started church hunting, and he found, I was not familiar with Unitarian Universalism, and we wound up going to Westchester for a while. They changed ministers and such, so we kind of fell away, and then he found WellSprings, and we came, we're like, this is pretty cool, but still, like, all the busyness and stuff of life, we fell away again. But then we came back again, and we really stuck this time. We became members, and you're stuck with us now.
Yep.
And
happy to be stuck with you.
The thing that I think is really funny in the whole journey is that this was started really thinking about our kids, but what I certainly found personally was that there was a whole lot of, not like missing, but there was lots of fulfillment and enrichment that became a part of my life that I didn't really like notice was missing, but I think since then has helped me become a bigger thinker, to think bigger, more about the world and about people and about where they're coming from and things like that. That I'd like to think I arrived some of that on my own, but definitely the becoming members and being a part of this community has definitely changed me for the better, I think. And and the same with the kids, although like many young adults, they also have fallen away for now, but I'm hoping that it's something that they'll come back to. Yeah.
I remember Aaron's super cool story about kind of the ways that what happens in our spiritual communities live on beyond them. When she did the OWL program, where in congregations you learn about relationships and sexuality and good comprehensive sex education, and how she went off to college and ended up teaching a mini OWL class to some of her classmates who didn't have that.
She did.
Yeah, that's beautiful to me. That matters to me, honestly, more than whether or not somebody shows up every Sunday, because that means that something that we did is now a part of someone, and to the extent that they think it's so valuable that they want to share it with other people. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was actually like, not to be like self-centered or whatever, but I was very proud. I just thought that was really cool.
I bragged on her for you. Yeah, I brought it up. You don't have to feel bad.
Yeah. And that's like, to me, that's doing good in the world. Sharing valuable information that can protect somebody's health or emotional health. So I'm very okay with that.
Yeah. How old were your kids when you started coming when you started going to church at all, I guess, even in Westchester? Were they elementary age then?
Oh yeah, they were pretty young. I hope Jimmy doesn't mind me sharing this, but at one point the minister was so sweet, and he asked something about tell me something about your parents or something like that. And Joe, he was like little Joe. He was maybe, I don't know, was he 4 maybe or something? And he goes, my dad takes naps.
That's not that bad.
know, could have been worse. It's like, woohoo, you know.
Yeah. Naps are very important. That's a good thing. Oh, that's sweet. So you even though you didn't really plan it, you kind of raised your kids in church in different UU congregations, because 4 is pretty young. Um, so you yourself were kind of brought to congregational life because you wanted to help give your kids this sort of spiritual identity and spiritual life and values and all those kinds of good things. But now, for the past 4 years, you've been working as our Youth Spirit Director here at WellSprings. So how have you, like, what kinds of things have you done these past 4 years that have helped you kind of learn more about how to support other families' spirituality?
Lee, I'm sorry, but 10 seconds, a call came, and because I'm an amateur at this, I missed like your last 2 sentences trying to get back to the screen.
No
Go
worries,
on.
I'll repeat it. So I was just saying, you started out as kind of a family within a spiritual community because you wanted your kids to have that kind of experience. And then now you've been working at WellSprings for 4 years, where you're helping other families kind of create that same thing for their children. So I just asked, kind of how have you, like, what kinds of things have you done over these past 4 years to learn a little bit more about how you support other families in their spiritual growth?
Well, since I guess you could call me a bit of a spiritual novice or whatever. There were a variety of things. I started, and it was really kind of only a few hours and sort of just trying to, figure out the lay of the land. But some of the professional organizations were really helpful and informative. I belong to a collaboration of, I guess, my area counterparts. That's called DESEREC. It's like, I looked it up to remind myself, Delaware and Susquehanna Area Religious Education Consortium, or something like that.
Oh,
Is DESEREC.
okay.
And
I don't blame you for not remembering what that stood for.
I know. And that group actually has been pretty tremendous, because they have both been lifelong UUs, and they, one member of the group has been an RE for 20 years. And some of the folks do lifespan, not just, kids and youth like me. And so sort of learning from them and what they do has been invaluable. Great records and programs and ideas were left by my predecessors, so that was super helpful. You and Ken were super helpful, sort of collaborating together to make to sort of do something a little unique within UURE, in that we sort of parallel our messages together instead of sort of diverging, which some of my colleagues do. And then there have been various webinars and seminars. I was trying to think of the other words. Seminars now, webinars, for educating religious professionals like me. And the one that was especially kind of mind-opening was the one called, this was about 2 years ago, just as I'm really ramping up into this, it's called Sunday School is Dead. And I was like, what?
I'm going to pay you money to tell me this? What's going on? Yeah.
And it was super interesting because it kind of made concrete something I was already sort of sensing. It was how busy families are, how torn, I stretched, I guess is the word. People are so active. There's activities that are very meaningful for kids, for their health, for their mental health, for social things. And so the room for Sundays has become had been becoming smaller. And so, like, overall, there's been a decline in, like, attendance to Sunday school, religious education on Sunday mornings, and even service and so forth. And so the whole emphasis is sort of the idea of, well, it's not just Sundays, which actually really just makes sense too. It's in your everyday things. It's what you do at home. It's can you think of something you do normally that maybe there is a spiritual component to it, or you can create one. So you can create, structures and traditions and things at home to kind of coordinate with whatever is happening on Sundays. That's the more safe, formal thing.
Yeah.
So,
I had heard about that that UU course, but also in a lot of other at least in other Christian traditions, Protestant traditions, there is a lot of talk about expanding the focus from just Sunday school programming to, to whole family ministry, or to partnering with parents, or to thinking about, and we say it even in our core values at Wellsprings, in our DNA, we talk about Sundays not just being about getting religion, for one day a week, right?
mm-hmm.
It's not like religion is something we do for 1 hour on Sundays. It is, if it is what it's supposed to be, it's a community and it's a value system that is a part of who we are. And so, we should be congruent with those values in all different kinds of places in our lives, including at home,
Mm-hmm.
including at work, including at school. So it's harder, though. I think, whenever anything changes, it's hard to do a job and be adapting and trying to figure out kind of where it's growing. If Sunday school is dying, then what comes next, and how do we do that? So, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, some of that was kind of maybe some of that groundwork was already kind of happening in the before times.
Yep. I was just going to say, and boy, that's good practice then for you to already be thinking about how things are changing, because, how has this year and the move to doing church online affected what you do in your job?
My first response would be, how has it not changed? Virtually everything, and that's a little exaggeration, because I was fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of my work from home during the week pre-COVID. But sort of the whole flip the switch, what Wellsprings and our staff and all of our volunteers did in a week was remarkable. I was pulling up the end. It took me another week to kind of get reoriented and so forth, and try and figure out this thing called Zoom, which I'd been on I don't know, half a dozen times before that. And try and navigate all of that and communicate with everybody and get the link. So really things have changed tremendously, because trying to translate seeing friends in person, being able to really read their body language, easily see their faces. You have a much better idea whether you're connecting with somebody on a story or an idea, or if they're upset by something that's going on. That's much harder to see on a little Zoom screen. Changed in a lot of ways. We've had people who came regularly who can't anymore. They feel that their kids are too zoomed out, or that especially our younger friends, it's hard for them to sit in front of a Zoom screen. So huge changes. It's also been kind of interesting, though, because there's a flip side too, where we started being able to do things that we couldn't do before. Like I always thought, like show and tell stuff. It's hard to get kids to bring stuff and then remember to take it back and all that. We did a pet show and tell. Everybody brought their pets to Zoom one Sunday morning and introduced them and talked about them.
Which would have been pretty impossible to do in real life.
Exactly. My other kind of really favorite one was at Easter time, when we always do our Easter egg hunt, and we had to, of course, not be able to do that. But one of the things we did instead was all the kids brought their dyed Easter eggs, and we had the Easter egg show and tell. And they could have never brought those. I would have never said, hey, bring those to Montgomery School and let's risk breaking them and all that.
Yeah.
We couldn't have done that. And also, it's just harder. It's like another piece of homework to try and bring it to a physical space. Whereas if it's just in your kitchen, you can just come over and do it. And again,
just run and go get it. Yeah.
And some of those things have been kind of joyful a little bit, to really be able to connect in that way. So it's like there's definite pluses and definite minuses.
Yeah. And a lot of changes. I loved, I think one Sunday you cooked with the kids, or you had them cook something ahead of time. That was another one that would have been hard to do in person.
Exactly. Yeah. We, August was what do you like to do? Show us what you like to do. And one of the things was cooking. Somebody wanted to cook. And my initial thought was, oh, we can't do that. Like in my mind, then I thought about it. I was like, no, we can figure this out. And so the person who, Zoe, who had suggested to do it, I said, do you want to all try to cook the same recipe together, or do you want to like make something and then like decorate it? And so she said decorate it. So all the kids, like, we had a great turnout, and all the kids, they brought muffins and cookies, and I had done a cake, and we're all just talking and explaining what we did and stuff, and it was like, super fun. And the idea
Yeah.
that, like, I keep getting this real personal joy out of the fact that, they're getting the information, and they're coming, which is, personally super satisfying, meaningful to me. And like
Yeah.
to still get to spend some time with these young friends, even though it's just through these little screens. I'm grateful for every minute.
Yeah. We all have to find these new ways to connect this year, and we've seen things change over time. We went from kind of March and April where everybody was really kind of shut in and locked down at home to trying to navigate different questions, and some families doing more things outside of the home than other families, and then that sometimes being a strain for their kids if some families were participating maybe in sports or other things and others weren't. And now here we are in November. I know Montgomery County is about to shut down schools for 2 weeks. I saw a press release from Chester County yesterday saying, we see what Philly's doing. We're looking. We're not sure yet what we're going to do. So I have a feeling, families are kind of probably, many families with young children are pretty exhausted probably by all the changes, and also kind of on tenterhooks, kind of wondering what's coming next. So I love how you have approached all of this, Carol, this year, because I think you really have managed to keep a focus on, what can we do? What new things are possible in this time, which is in and of itself, I think, a breath of fresh air when there's so much about, what can't we do anymore? That families have to cope with, and that parents have to help their kids cope with, which is hard too. So I'm curious what maybe you and also your colleagues that you're connected with, like what kinds of things do you hear from parents these days about the challenges of even thinking about spirituality or faith as something that they're going to bring into their kids' lives while they're just dealing with all this chaos and all the, the stress maybe of people being stuck at home together. What do you hear, and what do your colleagues hear about how that's affecting families and their spirituality?
Oh, well, lots of ways. So, I mean, there's some of the stuff where my colleagues and I are both have seen a decline because of some of the reasons that I've said. It's that's just, the Sunday thing is just not a way to be able to connect right now. We've also all sort of done our own version of trying things with some physical component, as we just did. I think the drive-through the last couple of days really said something about what families, that families and people, even though they're so exhausted, they still want to find ways to help if they think they're safe. The fact that all the CCF bundles and all the card making supplies kind of flew off the shelf on Sunday.
Which are two projects that we're doing where families can make something together to give out in the community.
The fact that we had such a nice response to that tells me that we're still managing to communicate, and they're still hearing and seeking those things. My colleagues have done other things similar. One did a sort of like a wonder box, and that, of course, is really prohibited to ship, but they had people come and get, and then I think they delivered them too. It was actually a box with some of the things that we've been sending to our families. Almost all my colleagues, like myself, did something like with a chalice, creating a chalice, trying to help families establish a space at home to think about ritual, to think about a sacred space. One of the one of the things that was really great that one of my colleagues made was this Unitarian Universalist Faith at Home recipe book, which I just loved. And we sent that to folks in August. And it had all these like great suggestions, not only about making a chalice, but also creating a family covenant. How are we going to be with one another, especially in this more challenging time? You know, as you well know.
When you kind of need to renegotiate how it works.
Yeah. You know, how many families have said, oh my gosh, we're on top of each other. We can't find a quiet space. You know, the kids need
You need the tablet. He needs the tablet. Exactly. I need the laptop. Yeah.
I mean, even YouthSpirit, our YouthSpirit created an extra step in that the way we were able to do it, we wanted to see if families could manage 2 devices, and it's a little clunky, but you know, you have to sort of like figure out your workarounds, and it's like all of this in the midst of parents being so exhausted because you know a lot of them are having to monitor their kids' schoolwork as well as, you know, try to keep doing their own work either outside of the house or even in the house. My colleagues have expressed the same kind of tough difficulties. People who have little kids, like the one thing I've said is I have my own challenges with worry and concern with my kids being college age, but families that have school age kids, I think I might be broken by now. I mean, it seems impossible what they are having to do, and you know, so to me, anything we can do to make things easier. I love this one quote. I wrote it down. Now I gotta see if I can find it here.
From that recipe book
from that
or something else?
book, and oh, here it is. All right, I really like this. It says, the object is not to put more on your plate, but to take advantage of the everyday things you are already doing. And to me, that's the idea. It even made me think about ordinary praise, right? It's just what you're doing. Are you open to recognizing that this is special? Are you open to recognizing that it's beautiful outside, or that the stars are out tonight, or that we all want to celebrate these little things together? So it's like make a little space for that, you know, because that's the one thing that's sort of tried to guide me too, is I've been trying to think, even with YouthSpirit, we're just a space. Like it's not work, it's a space, because there's just so much else going on.
Yeah. And there's no homework and there's no assignment list that the parents have to double check for YouthSpirit. It is just a space where people can be, where kids can be with each other. Yeah. And maybe with each other in a way that's free from those kinds of responsibilities in other places that they have to be right now.
Yeah. I send materials, and if they want to print them out or whatever, they can. But I always try to not overemphasize the materials when we're together, because if somebody doesn't have them, maybe they could draw it. The only thing I ask is to have like markers and paper. But as you were saying before, and we were saying before, you know, it's not just Sundays. It's like, you know, going on a hike or other things that you can do. The other thing, because I was asking my colleagues about tending spirituality and stuff, and I really love what my one colleague said about I'm going to paraphrase her now too, and I hope I don't mess it up, but something about the idea of routine versus ritual, right? Because we all have routines, and how do you recognize when a routine actually is more of a ritual? Like she said, you know, she still reads with her kids every night, which I did too, and she said that she thinks the difference is intent, which I thought was kind of brilliant. So intent, like, because the intent for me when I read with my kids all those years was connection, and helping them see the world. You know, I felt like, you know, an educational piece of it. So there was an intent, a purpose to that loving connection every night. Versus then I started thinking, you know, everybody gets up and puts their clothes on in the morning. And then I thought that might still be a ritual for some people. How they put on themselves, how they present themselves. For some people, may also have immense meaning. And I thought it was just really cool how you could think about everyday routines, and are they or can they become more meaningful as a ritual?
That's a great, yeah, that's a great point, because it reminds us that all of those routines are opportunities to become rituals. You know, you could look at what you are already doing every day, like even silly things like brushing your teeth, you know, or and that's often something we talk about with grown-ups too, with people of all ages, when we talk about mindfulness or spiritual practice. You know, we often will say, kind of like, look at the moments you already have in your life. When you if you have a commute at work, when you first get in the car in the morning, can you stop and take 3 deep breaths and do nothing else for, 10 seconds, but take 3 deep breaths? Those are kinds of the ways in, often, for people to find a time that they can bring some meaning and bring some intention to what they're doing, because they're already doing it. They don't have to start a new, exercise program about it, and find 20 minutes in their day or something like that. You can build off of what you already do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is especially necessary now, probably, for a lot of families with kids who really don't want to hear about one more thing that they need to start doing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh.
I liked what you said also about creating a space, and like, it reminded me that, a space could be a physical space at home that they kind of have for church or for Wellsprings or for Youth Spirit or however they talk about it. But a space is also time. A space could also be those moments throughout a day, those moments in your routine that you decide to make a spiritual space.
Yeah.
Are there kind of opportunities, you think, in this time when everybody's stuck at home, to do more of that kind of thing, or to do differently? Kind of, you talked about kind of how you've adapted Youth Spirit. How do you think families can adapt some of the routines they might already have at home to bring more spirituality into them?
A couple ideas come to mind. First off, I read this really cool thing. It was sort of a um, everyday play with a spiritual twist. The idea that, like, if your kids like to do chalking, well, maybe they can go to the neighbor and chalk a message of love and kindness. Or maybe they have a new neighbor and they could go put welcome signs in chalk. In other words, take those things you do every day. Some kids like to paint rocks, now this isn't that unique, but like the idea that you can, or, if you like to paint kindness rocks and take them outside and leave them for people. It's one of those, and that's one of those things, you're putting it into the ethernet, like, you're not going to get a compliment. Oh, I like how you're just putting it out there, like kindness, like love.
Yeah.
Um,
And what a cool opportunity to talk with kids about how that feels. Like, even, does it feel different when you write a message for the neighbor versus when you put the rock out? And just get them to reflect on that. There's no right or wrong answer, but just, what are the differences in, what it means to do an act of kindness when you know the person, and what does it mean to just kind of put that out into the world? And that could bring up a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that point. Another one that I read, like, I know it's getting cold out, but like, something I never thought about, which was create an all abilities obstacle course. Like, create an obstacle course, thinking about, well, what if somebody can't jump? What if somebody can't navigate this way? Just sort of that bigger thinking about beyond me. But it's still something fun that you can do and then run through. And if you are comfortable with safe distance, have your friends run through. Some of this stuff is pre-post COVID, but just the idea that you can take everyday play and put a bent on it. We have somebody at Wellsprings who, they sent me a picture. They were so excited because they had made their own love is love sign. Love is love. It's got the stripes. I can't think of all the lines right now. But they made their own.
Oh, like the rainbow colors?
Yeah, it's the rainbow color one. It says love is love. It's got like 7 things. Black Lives Matter and a few others.
Oh, the lawn signs. Yeah.
Yes. Well, they made their lawn sign with all of that, and they were all excited, and they put that out. And then when you think about inside, like, one of the other things that just jumps out is dinner time. I mean, if you manage, and not all families manage this, but maybe even that looks different now because of COVID. Maybe because we're in our bubbles, maybe we are having dinner together more. but I'm going to share this example with permission, but I really love this. I saw on a Facebook post from Kate Crary a couple months ago, and she put this post up about how since the Washington team manager hadn't bothered finding a new name for the former blank skins,
The football
the
team.
football
Yeah.
team, that they
Mhm.
spent their dinner hour coming up with new names for the football team. And not only were the names quite funny, and also it elicited a whole big thread of commentary from adults making funny comments and stuff. But to me, like, the most interesting thing was having the insight to bring up something that's meaningful in a way that was fun and engaging and maybe didn't feel heavy, but still was the point that we don't use that word anymore. Why? Because that was denigrating to a certain people. Why? Well, this is what happened, and it can open the possibility for conversation and, at the very least, awareness. We're renaming this team because we're doing something better now.
Right.
You know, and I just
And modeling for your kids, modeling even for your kids a step back from that, that's something we do, right? That's something that's okay to do. That's a value that we have, that you can change how you do something. You can learn something and do better and grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't even been reading all these comments because I can sort of only one brain thing at a time.
I'm just seeing one from Paula that's
Hi,
long. A
Paula.
couple of people have just said hello. Paula says, I made an obstacle course for my 2-year-old niece with chalk. It was the hit of the summer. As elementary as it was, the adults got involved. It was fun. Silky, I wonder if that's a typo. And and I was Aunt of the Year, Paula said.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember when it was. Maybe it was in like May. One of the kind of viral videos that was going around when people were more kind of stuck at home was some neighborhood somewhere, and the guy had one of those security cameras that, like, was kind of on his driveway to watch things going on in the neighborhood, but it was motion censored, and so he noticed that it kept getting tripped. And I think it was like early every morning there was a dad and a little kid who went out for a bike ride when the kid probably got up too early in the morning. And this kid was riding his bike by every single day, and this guy had a big driveway, so if the kid would kind of go in the driveway and like wind around it before it kept going. Did you see this video?
You might have mentioned it, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the neighbor guy noticed that this was happening every day, and so he got I think it was chalk at first, and then he got like really into it and got like tape or something, and he created like a little obstacle course path, like a little dirt bike path almost, like with all kinds of twists and turns and like a straightaway, and the kid totally, they never actually met. The guy was not out there getting to know the kid, but he saw the video would pick it up every single day. And I'm sure eventually he asked for permission to share the videos because that's what we saw. But of this kid now, like, delighted, to find that somebody was creating something for him. So I love that example too, because it's a good example of like connections between neighbors that we can create during this time too. Sorry, now there's a siren that you can probably hear in my neighborhood.
I do.
But even though we live in these neighborhoods, a lot of us, I know at WellSprings, a lot of people live in suburbs, life takes us into other kinds of communities. We know people from school, we know people from work. Parents commute usually, keeps them not super connected often with the people who live in their neighborhood. And when we're at home, we have lots of opportunities now to suddenly get to know the people that are around us in different ways. It's something that happened on my block. All of the neighborhood kids are like this little gang of children that run up and down the block all the time because they're not at school with their friends anymore, and they're building different kinds of relationships. They're not exactly all the same age. They're all they have in common is that their parents happen to buy or rent homes on the same street, and that's opening up whole new connections for them too. So I thought that was cool.
All right, you make me think about something that I think is really important to try to remember in all this, because it's easy to fall into, this is hard, we all know it's hard, we've all acknowledged that it's hard, but I also was reading some things that really spoke to me about resilience, and how you adjust, just like you said, those kids, okay, they don't have their school friends now, but now they like sort of made their new thing. And the same with YouthSpirit. Well, we don't have it that way now, we do it this way. I like, I'm very curious what things are going to look like in hindsight, and I don't mean the whole political insanity, but the idea of how did we step up to this, and what kinds of lessons were there lessons in resilience, along with all the other sort of negative stuff that we're having, because we've all had to adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also a powerful opportunity to model that to kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to how you, that's something that a lot of adults are still learning too, you know, kind of how do you hold and have compassion for yourself when things are hard,
Yeah.
but also remember what you still have the power to do, you know, and remember, you know, alongside that you have opportunities, and you can even look for silver linings and new opportunities in times like this. And that is part of how we build resilience, and part of how we avoid those extremes, kind of, even that I was talking about a little bit on Sunday, like, you know, just like I'm just going to keep going like nothing's happening, you know, and I'm going to insist on, you know, doing everything the way I want to do it. Like, well, no, that's not really the best way to be right now if we want to care for each other, and kind of modeling that for our kids, you know, that we're going to make adjustments for a greater good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that but it doesn't mean that everything's terrible. You know, we can make adjustments for the greater good and still enjoy our lives and find fulfillment in the fact that we're making some sacrifices, even, which goes all the way back to what you were talking about before, that one of the things that that families at WellSprings, it seems, are really still responding to is when we have opportunities to give, you know, beyond ourselves, and when we have these projects, that people really love that. Plus, it's not Zoom related, so I think that probably helps for a lot of families.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Mm-hmm. It's 12:15, so we have about 15 more minutes. I don't know. I'm looking over my questions that I had for you, and we kind of bounced around a little bit, but are there other? Oh, you know what? I wanted to ask you actually before I say that. You mentioned the Wonder Box that one of your colleagues was giving out to families in their congregation. What kinds of stuff went into that?
You're catching me on the fly here a little. I'm pretty sure
That's
there
okay.
was either there was stuff to make a chalice, I think, or chalices. I think it was stuff to make a chalice, like clay or something. And there was a cloth, like, you know, a cloth to make like a sacred space. And maybe also some people, I love this idea. I haven't decided how or when I might send them, but like a little stone for joys and sorrows. And it's kind of like the talking stick, like when you're in a group, when you have the stone, then you can share your joys and sorrows, you know. And I think it's a great way to, you know, help the group be together and help focus on each person. And then you have this sort of tactile piece. So it was mainly, I believe, things like that, to create sort of that sacred space.
Yeah, and handing out some of those like ritual elements that they might have been used to from their time together in person also.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you I know you've been doing something similar. You said it was not that dissimilar from what you were doing with the Youth Spirit packets. What kinds of things are you putting in? You're giving those out at the beginning of every message series, roughly, right? For Wellspring. So what kinds of things do you put in there?
Well, the first one in August had the actually the Faith at Home recipe book, and it's funny because we've had people join since then. I was thinking I should probably send out more of those, or put out a link or something to it.
Yeah, is that available online?
Yeah, I should double check and make sure it's okay to post the link. It was okay to send them out physically, but yeah, I could, you know, maybe put that on, because I think it's such a great resource. And I lost track for a second. So,
What
things at
things were
home.
in the packets?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got distracted. So yeah, in August we had some things like that. Something else that I think is kind of cool is if you get UU World, they do a little like a family insert, and so we included those for a couple of the months. And then some materials related to our upcoming lessons. And so some of them are related to Wellsprings messages, but also once a month, as you know, and as a lot of parents know, about once a month, we're also doing a program called Growing Anti-Racist UUs. And it's a vetted, very specially created program by RE professionals, RE professionals, and they made it available for us to use, and it was for in person. And actually my professional group, Direct, we are taking lessons and converting them to Zoom, because these are like 50-minute lessons with painting and all kinds of things that would be fabulous. But with
one day we'll do them again in
someday,
person.
yeah. But so
Yeah.
right now we've broken them down into their parts. Some have longer lessons than us. I really get feedback that 30 minutes is like plenty for our kiddos. So I send home materials for those, like things like we sent home diversity skin color paper, and then we had a talk about that, you know, what's closest to yours. A lot of the lessons are about making it easy to discuss things about our differences and our sameness and our race and what really is race and so forth. So it's been a terrific learning for me, and it's been great to have something that's a really meaningful tool to talk to the kids. So there's some of those papers, and then I always put some things in there just for fun, like the one that we just did. There's the information for the anti-racist lessons. There is a, oh, I'm so glad I'm remembering to mention this. There is a very tactile thing in there. Sandy Tucker from Heartworks, who we all know is remarkable. I asked her back pre-COVID, I asked her about these things I'd seen called finger labyrinths. And I think they were really cool. They're about this big, and they were like a spiral design. And they're, you know, for a tactile thing, they could have been used for maybe little kids who just had fidgety hands, or middle school kids who just, you know, you wanted to instill a mindfulness practice kind of thing. And so she's like, how many do you need? And she wound up, her and her team of knitters, they made about 25 for us. So I was going to use them this year in some lessons, but since everything changed, and since we're going to be both WellSprings message series and YouthSpirit are going to be talking about spiritual practice in the new year in January, every kid, turned out I had enough. Every kid got one of these labyrinths. Every single one of them is different. And so I think that's fun because it's just a fun thing to have, explore. I'm going to think about what kind of games can we do with them. And it's a tactile thing to hopefully help them center and think about mindfulness in the new year. And then
that's awesome.
There's a couple of just pages to color and word games just for fun.
Yeah. If people don't know what a labyrinth is, it is a kind of a spiritual practice tool. It's often used, and this is a great example actually of what you're talking about before, of adaptation for people based on mobility and what our bodies can do and what they can't do. Normally a labyrinth is like on the ground and people walk it. That's kind of the traditional way that they were set up.
Like they had at LUC.
Yeah, they had a temporary one down for a little while. And I've been to labyrinths.
They had a ground one. They had a built one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
With stone, right?
Yeah, I loved it. I went out there with the kids.
There's one at Bryn Mawr College also, and there's one in Philadelphia that's probably not practical for most people, but they have them. If you Google, you'll probably find some around the area that you can walk. But a labyrinth looks like a maze, but it's not a maze. It's specifically not a maze. There's only one path, and so it's kind of this winding path that takes you into the center of usually the circle design and then all the way back out as you walk it. And it's designed for kind of walking meditation so that you can walk without needing to think. You know, you can walk without needing to think about which direction am I going in, what choice am I making. The path kind of makes that choice for you and kind of holds that physical space for you then, so that you can be in movement as you reflect on a question. The traditional way that I was taught, at least, to walk a labyrinth is kind of walk into it with a question or something on your heart, because as you move, again, you don't need to engage your conscious brain to move. You can kind of move with the question and see what answers come as you go through it. And so finger labyrinths are a way to, there's actually even labyrinth apps for your phone where you trace it with your finger.
Seriously?
Yeah. So that's something that you can do if it's 2 degrees outside in February and you're stuck at home, you can use your finger labyrinth. Or if you just don't have access to one to get out, it's really nice. My mom loves labyrinths, and I got her a pewter finger labyrinth a couple years ago so that she has one at home too. Yeah, so that's just such a cool, and I'm grateful for Sandy Tucker, who leads our Heartworks team, can crochet like 100 yards a minute. I mean, she's
You,
she's awesome.
now, do you want, if I disappear for 5 seconds, do you want to see a picture of one?
Yeah, sure.
I didn't think to have that ahead of you.
Hey, Sadie, I don't know if you're still watching. Hey, Paula. Paula says, oh, we're going back to when Paula was talking about creating the obstacle course for her niece with chalk.
So,
oh, you saw that video, Paula. Cool. Yep.
When I was making the packets and I didn't think I had enough, I was going to send one and copies, and they're also beautiful. I made copies of all of them. So it wound up. So she made these. She and her amazing team with these little charms and stuff on them. So
oh, wow.
They're remarkable. They're beautiful. So I was so excited when the count worked. Sort of just so, but now actually we've talked since, and she has a job to make me a few more. So,
oh, nice.
But, you know, thanks to her. So, so yeah, I mean, I just try to think about. Well, of course, we've been doing planning, so I have some idea of what is coming up in the next message series, and then I have the AR lessons, and then I just try to make sure to put some things in there that are just fun, or like either just fun, like just something plain, or something that might have a little meaning behind it. Like I actually did find an old YouthSpirit crossword puzzle from like 2014 or something. I like changed the date and, you know, tweaked it up a little bit, you know, about thankfulness and stuff. So just, you know, oh, and the other thing that we did was included. So for the last few years, as a lot of people know, we did this gratitude tree, which that's it now.
Because its leaves have gone off
Yes,
to new places, right?
Because
Yeah.
I dismantled it and I gave, where discernible, I gave the kids their leaves back, because again, that's hard to do in class because kids are coming and going and stuff. You can get some, but some always leave them behind or whatever. Now this time I was able to just send them. And if they, you know, whether they want them or not, that's fine, but they can have them. And some people did have a little laugh about them. But there were ones that there was no discernible name, you know, like video games or
Can you show us? Yeah, there. I see it.
too
Yeah.
fast, soccer.
Play soccer.
Yeah. Or video games. Or the one I'm looking for the one that really made me laugh. Oh, here's I'm grateful for my faith. If you like sort of read it, it's not in order, that it says faith on top. And the other one I'm just trying to find, there's one that says cheese. I'm grateful for cheese.
I agree. I wrote that one, Carol. That's why you couldn't figure out whose name was on it.
Yeah.
Cheese. The picture is so helpful too.
So these leaves all came off of that now bare space, and I actually, if I have time, I'm going to string these up on a little tree for myself, just kind of in honor of our kids and stuff. But so everybody got their old leaves, if there were any for them, and then they got new leaves, fresh leaves for 2020. And what I said was, you know, write down something you're grateful for, and maybe make a collage or pin it on a bulletin board and embellish it. I sent them the little stones, the little gems.
And they can start their own tree at home.
Yep, and maybe we'll even get a picture or two. You know, I would love to see if the kids actually make them or not. But either way, however they use them, they use them.
Carol, if families are curious about getting those YouthSpirit packets, you send those out, or you deliver a packet to every family that's registered for YouthSpirit. Is that right?
Yeah, the first one went to every YouthSpirit age kid I could find, whether they were registered or not. The first and the second one, but it's it just makes sense just to make sure that we're sending them to the people who, you know, I don't want to send it to somebody who it feels intrusive. So
yeah, no, I was more thinking if a family is watching this or thinking about it and they'd like to get one and they're not, they can just reach out to you. It sounds like.
Yep. Oh yeah, I have the supplies. I can make more, and then of course the next one will probably be like mid-January-ish, something like that.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, now that I asked you that question, now it's almost 12:30. So I don't think we have any questions coming in. We had a couple people watching, but if anybody does have any questions, now is the time. So go ahead and type it into the chat. I'm scrolling through to make sure that's true.
So you guessed, and I started talking to you.
But I guess while we wait and see if there's any other questions, is there anything else that we didn't get to talk about, Carol? Any other thoughts that you have or things for families to keep in mind about kind of how they can bring spirituality home this year?
I made a list. So I do have some other things. You know, I think some of the key things are just thinking bigger about how you play. Something that actually just popped into my head too was the game of life. Because even like the game of life can give you an opportunity if you, it's like how you frame things. You know, maybe that can raise some questions. Or the ideas of the dinner conversation, like, and I had something else that I thought was really interesting too about, I can't find it. But the idea that, not just how was your day, but what happened in your day that was good? What happened in your day that wasn't so good? Did you hear about something you want to learn more about? Or do you have a question for me from your day? Like, you know, not just more open-ended, harder to just do yes or no questions so that you can elicit connection. And then, so there's like a lot of like little things, and I can just read a few of these, like the idea of a gratitude jar or a gratitude pumpkin, which you can even do, and everybody just writes down what they're grateful for. Prayer, which is something we do during service, and we can certainly do on our own. Other things like rituals like lighting a candle, which I also wanted to mention online. I didn't get to check it myself, but UUA lights a chalice every day at 6:30 apparently. Like, there's an online chalice lighting at 6:30 every day, but I didn't get to check it myself. I just heard that from my colleagues, which I thought was kind of cool to sort of stay connected to the really larger community, you know, UU community, which I thought was kind of cool.
And right around dinner time could be an opportunity to create a little ritual if the families want
Exactly.
to. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, said that, hiking and enjoying the outdoors. That's actually something I was thinking about that I actually did. I didn't really think about spirituality per se, but it really was that when my kids came home from college, they were pretty grumpy, right? Because it was hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's you know, there's this unknown craziness going on, and now we all have to jam into this house. Now we're 4 adults, right? We're not 2 adults and 2 kids. We're 4 adults all stepping on each other. And so I wanted to create, even though we were like together all the time, I wanted to create like intentional time together. So we started doing, I proposed and they all went along. We did, it changed the day once in a while, but we did like game night every Friday afternoon, and we did a hike every Saturday morning. And we really stuck with it almost the entire time that they were here. And so the game night was great because it created a chance to have some fun and connection inside and laugh about trivia or competition. And then the hikes outside, just enjoying nature together. And we took some really, really long hikes, and we even traveled for one. There was our one traveling, which was to, is it it's not Ricketts Glen, it's Ricketts Glen, a couple hours away. There's 21 falls. And just the idea, I was so glad that they were willing, and I really treasured that space that we had together, and it was very intentional.
Yeah. Helped with the grumpiness, it sounds like.
It did. And then there's also things like upcoming mindfulness practices, yoga, meditation, dinner discussions. There's an app that Reverend Ken turned me on to called Smile Mind that has a lot of mindfulness programs directed at kids. And it's actually, that's an area that I'm trying to gain some skill in, because we're going to try and do some content on our YouthSpirit channel, YouthSpirit playlist.
The YouTube channel on YouthSpirit for YouthSpirit. Yeah.
Correct. Right.
What's the app called? Smile Mind?
Smile Mind. Yes. SMILEMIND.
We did get a couple little questions in, and one of them actually was about resources. Sadie Lansdale, who's one of my minister colleagues, says, got resources you can recommend to us. And Sadie, so Smile Mind, it sounds like, is one of the apps that Carol's thinking about. And then the other thing I was thinking of for resources that we might recommend would be that recipe book. So Carol, I'm wondering, yeah, if you can find out if we can post a link to it, we could just put the link in the comments on this video. So let us know, because I remember reading through that and finding that there were tons of great things for families.
Yep. There's, because not only are there good ideas, but there's links to, there's even information about the history of the chalice itself, how it came to be and stuff, which is great for families. You know, because it takes a while for ideas to gel with kids and stuff, understanding.
What's the title of that packet?
It's called the Unitarian Universalist Faith at Home Recipe Book.
Okay, because we can try Googling it too and see if it's available publicly somewhere.
It's Matthew Scheineman is one of the, I'm not sure if it's Scheineman or Scheineman, but he's one of the three, and they made it, I think, during their work on a Ren mod. Earlier this year.
Which is a training module for you religious educators.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Cool.
It looks like he made it with a few other people. So yeah, I mean, it's possible it could already be out there, but yeah, I will check and, gladly post it.
Cool. And then Susan Norris had a question. She said her family is having a Zoom Thanksgiving. And she said, do you have ideas for questions specifically for teens that won't get yes and no answers?
Well, yeah, actually, there is a great book. Trying to think if I can grab it quick, or just let me see, what is it? It's just called The Book of Questions. It is something available on Amazon. It's like $10, and it's about this big. And there's one for adults, and there's one for younger. And I find a lot of the questions in the adult one can work for the teens also. Runs the gamut. I'm trying to think. Like one of the examples, it was like something silly like, would you rather be able to eat any time, but it's something you don't like, or be able to eat what you love, but it's only once a year? You know, like different things like that, you know, make you think about, you know.
Yeah, and are playful in a way also. Yeah, don't like you were saying before, ways to engage a topic that don't feel like heavy, or that aren't going to elicit the like, oh mom, you know, like I don't want to talk about this, but you know, are more just ways to open up a different kind of conversation.
Right. I mean, on the one hand, you know, let's say, you know, you could say, you can always talk about, hey, you know, what's your favorite sports team and things like that. And on the surface, you can say, well, that's not really spiritual, but is it fostering connection? Is it getting somebody to open up? You know, so even the most mundane things, I think I go back to what my colleague was saying, is about intention. You know, if you're trying to connect with somebody, you know, thinking about how to get that little crack, because yeah, teens can be tricky. We're still always trying to pull our teen gamers into conversations, and they're a tough nut.
Yeah. So it's just called The Book of Questions?
It's called The Book of Questions. Yeah, I can go get it, and if you want to see it, but I know we're tight on time, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if there's an author or something, you can put it into the comments later. And Susan says, of course, the answers will be out there for all to see. Susan, you mean on Zoom, everybody is talking to everybody? I'm thinking that's what she means. But maybe actually, if you're having a Zoom Thanksgiving, you can use that private chat. You know, if you've never done that before, there's a chat window on the side, and it's set as a default to everybody in the Zoom. But you can pick out one person and you can talk with them, and that's kind of like leaning over in the Thanksgiving dinner table and whispering something to somebody.
Yeah, I love that option for the private, because you know, sometimes you don't want to bother the group or whatever, or in this case, because you want to make a specific connection. Yeah, that's a great option.
Right. Yeah. Well, Carol, thank you so much. It's 12:37, and you and I actually have a meeting that we have to be in a little while, so we should finish up. But this has been really wonderful, and I you know, I've said it to you, but I just want to say again that how grateful I am for your adaptability and your creativity and your attitude also this year. When everything with no notice got completely upended. And you were saying before, it took you like an extra week to figure out how to, oh geez, it took you, a whole other 7 days to figure out how to change your entire job.
Yeah.
Get it together, Carol. No, I mean, you've done a beautiful job helping and meeting our families where they are also, and helping continue the mission of what it is that we want to do with families at WellSprings, while realizing that the methods had to change. And that's what's most important. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's
You're
an
welcome.
evolution actually, and it's an ongoing education because there's always ways to do better and new things that we haven't thought of yet, which is why I want to be very collaborative, and I'm always open to ideas, suggestions, critiques, whatever. How can we make things better to connect our families with each other and with us? Same with teens.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Carol. We should go eat lunch.
All right.
I'll see you on Zoom in another 20 or 40 minutes or something.
Bye, Susan, Paula, and everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody. Bye, Carol.
All right. Thank you. Bye.